Good morning, traders. I want to take a minute this morning and do a demonstration video of my MultiBars. It's not a new product, but one of my newer products. So I look at multiple time frames. I'm looking at a 30-minute chart and a 5-minute chart, and here on this workspace that you're looking at right now, there's a 1000 volume, and then there's a Renko, a hybrid Renko type bar on the chart. This wouldn't necessarily be what I'm looking at while I'm trading, but a demonstration of a number of data series. Now, ultimately, in my case, I prefer to use this 30-minute chart over here as my longer time frame day trading type chart and hone in on the entries and targets and different types of things on my smaller time frame charts. I personally like knowing what's going on here, but it's so distracting to have to look from this chart to this chart to this chart to when you start looking at multiple charts, it does start getting a little distracting. So the idea that I've always wanted to have was, if I had this 5-minute chart up here, I want to see these 30-minute bars right on top of these 5-minute candles. And I want to see the same thing here on this 1000 volume chart, and I want to see the same thing on any chart that I look at. So instead of even having this chart down here, I just want to overlay those bars on this 5-minute chart, kind of like this, of what that would look like. So these would be the 30-minute bars here overlaid on this chart. Sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Not so much. Let's just pull over a blank chart now. Just pulled in a chart. It's a 1000 volume chart. So now somehow or another I need to get 30-minute bars on this 1000-minute volume chart. Now we can do this by going into the data series, and here we've got 1000 volume applied. I can apply another data series, and let's just say we're going to make it minute, and we're going to make it 30. And we're only loading 3 days of data on the other, so we'll only load 3 days of data on this one. And I've got a proprietary candlestick. It's nothing special other than it has opacity in it. So it allows me to come down and make those bars have a little opacity so I can see through them. So now I can already tell that I'm going to go into my data series, and we're going to load a few more days onto both of these. And we'll load 5 days so that I've got some data down. Well, but these bars are all screwed up. These are the 30-minute bars, but they don't match up with what's up here. We can go into the properties here, and we can call this equidistance off. Well, now the bars, now my 30-minute bars look pretty good, but my one volume bars are offset like my 30-minute bars were before. Well, that's just no good. So let's turn that back on, and instead let's just make it a minute chart. So now I've got 5 minutes on top. Let's make them look decent. And we've got 30 minutes on bottom, and those look pretty decent. That looks pretty decent. So let's drag this up here and overlay them. How is that working here? So they end up in the middle of the bar. In the middle of the bar. aesthetics of that look horrible. Now we're just looking at two candlesticks overlaid each other. That's kind of horrible. And then as I go back, that last 30-minute bar remains on my chart the whole time that bar is developed from the first bar. So at the first start of this 5-minute bar, I already see what the 30-minute bar is going to have done at the end. That's not real good for historical analysis either. So that's the problem. It doesn't really matter what data series chart you have. The idea is that I want to be able to place any type of 1-minute candlestick on top of any other type of chart out there. Okay, so let's just take a look. Let's make this bigger. We're going to hide that. And we'll turn our bars on. All we're doing here is applying an indicator. We're applying an indicator to the chart. We'll throw this up at the top, and let's go through a few things. We can set the bars that we want to look at overlaid to either bars or minutes. What does that mean? It means I can set it to minutes. What do I want to look at on top of this? Doesn't matter. This is a 5-minute chart. This could be a volume chart, a Renko chart, could be anything. I can look at 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 30 minute, whatever minute, no points, no 3.3 minutes. In increments of 1, you can look at whatever minute bar overlay you'd like. Even odd. I'm on 5 minutes here. Let's say that I say that's a minute. And let's say that I wanted to look at 13-minute bar overlay. This will take a minute to calculate. I think I'm loading 100 days on this. In your action... I've got to close my properties. And you're actually seeing where that would end up exactly in time on the screen. And as you scroll back, that bar is going to dynamically display on each bar of your main data series. What does that mean? We come back to here as we progress forward. We see what's happening as the bar is developed. But what's more importantly is that when we're historically going back and we're doing this, that we see where my overlaid bar is dynamically in time. I don't want to come to here on the first bar of my overlaid bar and already know where this bar is going to end. That doesn't help me when I'm doing historical analysis and or testing and or anything. Okay, let's go back into there and we'll just continue on with the property settings. If we wanted to look at bars, what that means is we can, if I set that to 5, every 5 bars of my main data series, I would outline another candle. And that candle would have an open and a high and a low based on the bars that we're looking at that time. So if I go bars, this is a 30-minute candle. If I say 6 bars and say apply, well, if these are nothing more than 30-minute candles going on. Right? 6 bars times 5 if everything resets at the session break. So this should be very similar to a 30-minute bar. What you got to watch out for, I need to make this clear. Okay, you would think that this would mean I have 30-minute bars. And it should, other than NinjaTrader in any type of minute candlestick or any type of minute bar period. there needs to have an incoming tick within that time period for a bar to even be on your chart. Okay, and let me try to make that even clearer. If I'm looking at a 1 minute candlestick bar and I'm looking at 12 o'clock midnight, if it's 12 o'clock midnight and that candle's supposed to start, and all of a sudden it's 12:01, all of a sudden it's 12:02, all of a sudden it's 12:03:06 before the next tick comes in. There won't even be a 1 minute, there won't even be 1 minute candles for those 2 minutes. Just how NinjaTrader works. So there are times, depending on if that happened within a 5-minute period of time since the open, this would not match up exactly with a minute bar because it's not seeing the time period that wasn't drawn. I hope that makes sense. So if you want to look at 30 minutes, make sure you just set it on 30 minutes. And there's your 30-minute bars. It looks like it did match up today. In this 30-minute bar, you're going to dynamically see develop as time goes on. Outside of that, there's not, I will discuss some kind of hidden features, if we'll call it that, but you can set your bar colors and your wick colors, and there's not much else to talk about in here. If we want to hide the label up here, I have a checkbox here that says hide label like all my products, and then we can, just like everything else, if you've looked at any of my other videos, I allow you to adjust the color of the icon, of the drop-down icons that I place in the toolbar to match your theme. So as far as properties go, all we're going to do is set bars, minutes, set our periods, declare what we want these to be, and say OK. Everything else is done from the drop-down. I place a little drop-down in NinjaTrader's toolbar, and when we left click on that, we get a menu that pops down, and in this menu I can pretty much dynamically change whatever properties I want without having to right click and go into properties and refresh the chart and do all that other kind of stuff. So if I left click, I get a menu. If I middle click, that means I'm going to hide everything that has to do with this particular indicator. I'm going to hide all my multibars. Middle click again, they're back. If I right click in this indicator's instance, I'm going to hide my, okay, maybe I need to explain this. With all of my products now inside the core, I actually ship a custom candlestick. And you say, well, why do you need it? This is nothing more than a minute candlestick. Nothing special about this whatsoever, other than you can declare the opacity of the bars or of the candles themselves. So these are, these are white and black. If I wanted to make them a little more transparent, I could do that. Okay, so that's just included in all of my products. If you're using these, also there is hidden property within the chart style that you could go back in and check that, and it will hide it through the properties here. But now all you have to do using the multi-bars is just right-click the icon, and we hide our primary data series. So now I'm looking at a 30-minute chart. Right click again to unhide. So middle click to hide the multi-bars, right click to hide the primary series. Left click to get our menu. here we can turn our multi-bars off again. Pretty easy, just doing that. Or if we don't want to look at the wick of that bar, we can turn that off, which I tend to look at a lot because that wick can be confusing. There's times you're going to want that. There's times you're not. The outline of the candle itself, we can turn that on and off. We can make that different colors. You can set that within the properties of the indicator. But depending on how you want to look at that, you can just quickly turn things on and off. And then there's your show primary bars. So no matter what data series I have on my chart, I guess I can't necessarily make that promise with all proprietary type bar types if I haven't tested them. But so far, this has worked on everything I've thrown at it, other than it doesn't work with line break. It doesn't work with a couple things that I've listed on the page. I don't remember. There are a couple that it will now work with. Sorry about that. So now we demonstrated just a minute ago that we can hide our primary series if we wanted, but I wanted to play with the idea of what just a lettered bar, what you would consider a TPO bar, would look like on here instead of these candlesticks. So I played with the concept of being able to put those on there so that I could look at it like this instead. So this is nothing more than the 5-minute candlestick you were looking at, only it's more in a TPO bar using a letter. Now, I'm using the letter A for every bar in my multi-bar. If we want to look at the close of that bar, we can also highlight that through a dot. Now, I do believe if you go into the properties settings of the indicator that you can actually set the opacity of that dot as well, so that you didn't want it to be so dark like that. You could have it like that. If I can turn the bars off and just look at where the closes were in those 5-minute bars. So I can see the closes here. The closes are going down, 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 down. They leveled off. They broke out. And they broke up. But we were just looking at the TPO bars, right? So now let's consolidate these into a profile. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of, I can look at both, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the bars. And all I did was take those bars and consolidate them into a profile. Now anything that's highlighted in yellow here based on the properties that are by default, these are singles within that profile. Now, I'm not going to teach a lot of market profile and TPOs, but I do want to explain what that feature is in the drop-down, right? So now all I'm doing is I'm looking at a profile of this 30-minute bar, and this is just telling me that here, between these prices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 for 25 minutes, I could have bought or sold that level, and it really not gone anywhere. Now, I'm not going to teach a lot of methodology behind this. This is just something that I was experimenting with. This is something that I look at every day, but it's not the primary purpose of the product. Okay, let's move on. So let's go ahead and turn those off, our primary bars back on. If we want to change, if I wanted to look at a 15-minute instead of a 30-minute, This will take a little longer of a calculation when you have that TPO checked as well. But you can see there's no, aesthetically, this should be perfect. As I scroll back, I dynamically see that my underlying primary series. Okay, I think that's about it. Let's just make sure real quick. Yep, that pretty much covers it. All right, thanks for your time, guys. And as always, in this crazy world, please be safe.